To avoid affecting my younger sister's reputation, my mother begged me to adopt the child she had out of wedlock. I devoted myself to raising her daughter into adulthood, thinking I would earn her gratitude. Unexpectedly, in order to seize all of my assets, my younger sister joined forces with her own daughter to kill my biological daughter. When I opened my eyes again, I had somehow returned to the moment when my mother first asked me to raise that little ungrateful wretch. This time, I flatly refused. Whoever gave birth to the child should raise it. I'm not going to be the sucker. The atmosphere in the living room was tense. Dad looked stern, Mom looked pained, and only Sue Shinting, standing in the corner, stood there with her belly out and her neck stiff. I've already said it. This baby in my belly has to be born. At worst, I'll raise it myself. Just as she finished speaking, Dad, furious, dashed up to her in a single stride and slapped her hard across the face. Her skin was delicate. A slap left her face bright red. Her mother, who had always doted on her, quickly pulled her father aside to stop him from hitting her again, and then spoke herself. Do you even know how hard it is to raise a child? Food, clothing, shelter, and all the rest cost money. You're only 22, and you don't even have a job. Do you have the ability to raise a child? Besides, by then, what kind of good family do you think you'll be able to find if you're carrying a child? As soon as her mother finished speaking, Sue Shinting actually started wiping away tears in grievance. What am I supposed to do? She's already 8 months along. It can't even be aborted now. What else can I do if I don't give birth to her? After saying that, she even began to sob. This all too familiar scene made me instantly realize that I had been reborn to before the time when the child who was later adopted by Sue Shinting came along. In my previous life, it was also on this very day. I was still at work when my parents called me home on the pretext that something serious had happened at home. Only after I got home did I learn that Sue Shinting was pregnant, and the baby in her womb was already 8 months along, yet she didn't even know who the child's father was. After lashing out at her in anger, my parents then turned their criticism toward me. They said Sue Shinting still wasn't married, and if she had to take care of a child as well, her whole life would be ruined. They couldn't just stand by and let something so terrible happen. Only if I adopted the child would it be the best choice. Of course, I was unwilling, but my parents cried and threw a fuss, and later even tried to kneel down and beg me. With no other choice, I had to agree. That child was handed to me as soon as she was born. I raised her as if she were my own daughter, bought her beautiful clothes, sent her to the best schools, and spent a fortune so she could learn arts and talents. But that child seemed to have inherited the worst traits from her biological parents' genes. Even at a young age, she refused to go down the right path and spent her days hanging out with those young men and women outside. She worried me to no end. Even so, I still patiently guided and taught her. I never expected her to collude with those hoodlums and deliberately bully my biological daughter, ultimately driving my daughter to take her own life. Losing my daughter in middle age left me overwhelmed with grief, but later, I realized that all of this had been deliberate on her part. She had even been the one to lead my daughter to suicide, and the only reason was that she wanted to get all of our attention and property, and my dear sister was the one who fanned the flames behind all of this. I was filled with utter regret, so the moment I realized I had been reborn, I swore that I would never again, as in my previous life, invite a wolf into the house. But I also knew they wouldn't give up easily, so I still had a tough battle to fight. Sure enough, after the room fell silent for a while, Mom turned her gaze to me. Cindy, what do you think about this? I don't have much of an opinion. Then you're going to let her have the baby? The way she said it made it sound as if Sue Shinting was only having this baby because of me. I'm not taking that blame, so I quickly spoke up. What do you mean I made her have the baby? It's not like I was the one who got her pregnant. Don't pin this on me. Sue Shinting is an adult. She knows what she should do and what she shouldn't. When my mother heard my somewhat resistant words, her face flushed. Look at you, child, no one said this was your responsibility. But in the next instant, she said again, your sister is still young. If she ends up with a child, how would she ever get married in the future? Hearing this familiar line, I thought to myself, so it's finally come. My mother carefully watched my expression. Seeing that I had no objections, she began to continue, speaking with a clear conscience. This is what I was thinking. You see, Lin Shen and I have been married for so many years and never had a second child. We only have one child, Bebe, so why not have Shinting give birth to the baby and then have it adopted by you to raise, as if it were your own? What do you think? After saying that, she looked at me eagerly, and I was already seething with anger. It had always been like this since I was little. They favored Sue Shinting and sided with her in everything. This matter is the same. It was clearly meant to help Su Xinting solve a problem, yet the way she said it made it sound as if she were bestowing a favor on me. It was truly hard to accept, seeing that I said nothing. Mom looked somewhat embarrassed, but she had no choice but to brace herself and continue. Cindy, you and Xinting are full sisters. After all, you won't refuse to help with this, will you? Su Xinting and I share the same mother, but our relationship has never been good. When my parents gave birth to me, they said the family was in poor financial condition, so they left me with my grandparents in the countryside. By the time Su Xinting was born, our family's situation had improved, so she grew up with our parents. Because of that, we actually didn't spend much time together. When I was 15, my grandparents passed away, and I returned from the countryside to live at home. At that time, the three of them were living a blissful and harmonious life, while I felt like an outsider. Su Xinting thought I had stolen Mom and Dad's attention from her, and she often gave me a hard time, and when I told Mom and Dad, they would say that my younger sister was still young and that I should indulge her, so I suffered a great deal of grievance for it. They spoiled Su Xinting rotten and let her run wild, yet made me bear the consequences of her mistakes. No way, so I spoke up. Whoever wants it can have it. I don't want it anyway. My words were crisp, my attitude resolute, and I rejected it outright. Su Xinting also knew that she simply couldn't support a child on her own, and she had been counting on her family to help raise it, so when Mom was talking to me just now, she didn't make a sound and only listened intently, but when she heard that I didn't plan to help her, she completely broke down again. Who said I need her to help raise my child? I don't need her, I can give birth, so I can raise her too. Even if I have to live on chaff and wild greens, I'll still raise her. With that, she turned and was about to head outside. She was already 8 months pregnant, with a frighteningly large belly. At a time like this, who would dare let her go out? Her mother tried to coax her and also tried to stop her. She, meanwhile, cried and made a fuss, insisting on leaving. The scene was a complete mess for a while. I stood by and coldly watched it all unfold, and found it utterly ridiculous, until Dad's angry shout broke the deadlock. Do you still think it's not embarrassing enough? How long are you going to keep making a scene? Dad scolded Su Xinting again. Although his words were harsh and unpleasant, I knew he was only angry for the moment. In his heart, the one he loved most was still this second daughter, whom he had raised as his precious girl. As expected, after taking care of Su Xinting's matter, he turned to look at me, his tone hard and unyielding. You're the older sister, so you should help your younger sister. I've made the decision on this. Once your sister gives birth, bring the child to you, then it'll call you Mom and take care of you in your old age. So you still want me to raise it? So I reiterated once again, whoever gave birth to it should raise it. I don't want that child. My dad, who had always been the authority in the family, was rarely ever talked back to. After hearing what I said, his expression immediately turned ugly. Seeing this, Mom hurriedly pulled me aside. Cindy, are you afraid that Lin Shen won't agree? Mom is telling you, Lin Shen has a good temper. If he doesn't agree by then, you can. I looked at the person in front of me who was teaching me how to pressure my husband, and I only felt that she was terribly unfamiliar. I suddenly thought of my previous life. After my daughter Huan died, she had also pulled me aside like this and told me that since Huan was dead, there was no point in pursuing it any further. I should magnanimously let go of past grievances and forgive that ungrateful little wretch, then give my property to her in hopes that she would support me in my old age and see me off. At the end, I began to doubt, was she really my mother? I almost wished I wasn't her biological daughter, only then might I be able to understand why they treated me differently, but it only ended up disappointing me. I interrupted my mother, who was still going on and on about how to tame a husband. My first question, am I really your daughter? Did you ever truly love me? Why are you always making plans for Su Xinting and ignoring my feelings? I've already said it several times, I don't want this baby. Is that so hard to understand? Su Xinting made the mistake, so why do I have to bear the consequences? Is that fair to me? From childhood to adulthood, I had always been very respectful toward them. This was the first time I had ever said something like this. Mom froze for a moment, said immediately, you see, you child, why are you still holding a grudge? Your younger sister is still little and doesn't know better. It's only normal for Mom and Dad to look after her a bit more, but we've never treated you badly either. Didn't I come to take care of you when you were in your postpartum confinement? Indeed, she did come when I was in my postpartum period, and she brought a bag full of eggs, saying they were free-range eggs bought in the village and very nutritious. But when I turned around, I found a supermarket receipt in the bag. After she cooked for me for a whole day, she said the next day that she was too tired to get out of bed. It was me, enduring the pain of my incision, who forced myself to cook for her. She came and didn't help at all, only made a lot of mess. In the end, there was no choice but to ask her to leave and have my mother-in-law come instead. My mother-in-law, though also from the countryside and not very educated, treated me very well. Knowing that I was afraid of gaining weight, she learned about nutritious meals online every day and made all kinds of delicious food for me. It was precisely because of this that, after my confinement period ended, I was able to be in such good condition, but Mom kept telling everyone that this was all thanks to her. Thinking of this, I suddenly felt exhausted. I felt that nothing I said would make any difference anyway, as long as I didn't give in. They had no way around it, so I added another line: do whatever you want, whoever's child it is can raise it, it has nothing to do with me, I'm heading back. After saying that, I turned and left. As soon as I stepped out of the room, I heard Dad's roar. Let her go, all of you can go, what an ungrateful brat, just pretend we raised her for nothing. I stood at the door and held back again and again, but in the end I still couldn't take it and turned back. You never raised me in the first place, I was raised by my grandparents. After saying that, I turned and walked away again. Even when the ashtray whizzed past over my head, I didn't stop. On the way back, just thinking that I'd soon get to see my daughter Juan filled me with joy. My daughter Juan is both smart and sensible. What's rare is that, despite being so young, she is especially understanding and considerate. Most children, when they know a new child has joined their family, would inevitably feel a bit competitive for affection, but she showed not the slightest trace of jealousy. Whenever there was something tasty or good to drink, she would always give it to her younger sister. But such a good child was later treated like this by them. What made me feel most guilty was that back then all my attention was on that little ingrate, and I failed to notice my daughter's abnormal behavior. After my daughter left, I kept thinking that if only I had discovered it earlier, if I hadn't brought that little ungrateful wolf home, would she still be fine? I realized that this time, I must protect my daughter properly. I not only need to teach her truth, goodness, and beauty, but also that there are people in this world as vicious as snakes and scorpions. For the sake of a little profit, they will stop at nothing. The moment I got home and saw my daughter, I hugged her tightly, feeling her small, soft little body. I couldn't help but burst into tears. After my daughter noticed my tears, she used her little hands to wipe them away for me. Little by little, Mom, is someone bullying you? Her voice was soft and babyish, yet it carried deep concern. Looking at her adorable little face, I couldn't help pinching her chubby cheeks. No one is bullying Mommy. Mommy just missed you too much. Mommy, I miss you too. My daughter kissed me on the cheek and said sweetly. In that instant, I felt completely healed. Just then, Lin Shen heard the sound and came out of the room. He asked, "How's everything at home?" "Nothing happened, right?" I glanced at my daughter. Juan, go to the living room and watch some cartoons for a while. Mom and Dad need to talk about something. After my daughter left, I told Lin Shen the whole story from beginning to end. He was stunned for quite a while before finally saying, "Your sister is really something else." After hearing Lin Shen say that, the tension I'd been holding all day suddenly eased. He has exactly that kind of ability. Whenever I'm upset, he can always cheer me up. After the joke, we got down to business. I couldn't tell Lin Shen that I had been reborn, so I could only say, I have a feeling that this child's arrival will definitely throw our lives into chaos. I don't want anyone to disturb us. Lin Shen smiled. Why make it sound so ominous? But everything in our family is up to you. Whatever you say goes. Still, Mother and father-in-law probably won't let this go so easily, will they? I had to admit, Lin Shen had hit the nail on the head. The next day, my mom's call came through. Your dad was so angry at you yesterday that he didn't sleep all night, and he's still complaining of a headache. Your sister was also so angry at you that her stomach hurt, and she's still in the hospital. You, listening to the complaints from the other end, I interrupted her again. I still don't understand what exactly I did to piss you all off. Could it be just because I refused to help Su Xinting raise her child? I have the right to say no, don't I? My mother on the other end of the line, however, didn't respond to what I said. She was still accusing me. You become so petty and nitpicky now. Your dad was right, you're just not close to us. And it's not like you don't have the means now, so what if you can't afford to raise a child? What's wrong with helping your younger sister? If I had heard my mom say these words before, I definitely would have been heartbroken for a long time. But now I felt no emotional stir at all, and even had the mood to joke with my mom. Let me give you some advice. Go find the biological father of the child in Su Xinting's belly. Stop always trying to shove that kid over to me. Really disgusting. After saying that, I hung up the phone. Later, my mom called several more times, but I didn't answer any of them. This behavior completely enraged my parents. The next few days were extremely painful for me, because every day I received several harassment calls. Aunt Cindy, you're not young anymore, why are you still so unreasonable? You should also think about your parents. If your younger sister's matter isn't resolved, how worried must your parents be? Second uncle, you've gone too far, your mother is so old, and she still has to put up with your temper. She called me yesterday crying like a tearful mess. Cousin-in-law, you really don't want that child becoming a mother without pain. What a blessing. Me, if this blessing is so great, I'll give it to you. Do you want it? Because of this, I've offended quite a few people these past few days, but who told them to meddle in other people's business? Of course, among my relatives there were also quite a few younger ones who supported me. They left comments saying I handled it beautifully, and even said that where there is oppression, there is resistance. I've now quite literally become the most self-centered person in their eyes. Actually, I really don't understand what my parents are doing. According to them, they were afraid of affecting Su Xinting's chances of getting married. If that was the case, wouldn't it be better for as few people as possible to know about this? But now they're making such a huge fuss and bringing the whole family together to denounce me, as if they're afraid no one else will find out. Could it be they're trying to guilt-trip me with morality? I really couldn't figure it out. Time passed in such noise and commotion until a month later, Su Xinting suddenly went into labor and was rushed to the hospital. After a day and a night, she gave birth to a daughter, the same little ungrateful wretch from my previous life. During this time, my parents still had not given up on the idea of having me adopt the child, and they urged me to go to the hospital many times, and she even said I just haven't seen that child yet. Once I do, I'm sure I'll like them. Of course, I have refused them all. I'm afraid I won't be able to stop myself from hurting that little ungrateful brat. Just thinking about how, in my previous life, she had instigated those thugs to burn my daughter's body with cigarette butts, and later lured my daughter into suicide. I wanted nothing more than to beat her to death on the spot. Unlike how she used to brush me off, my mom's care for Su Xinting was nothing short of meticulous. The chicken had to be free-range local chicken raised on grain, the eggs had to be freshly laid local eggs, and even the vegetables had to be organic every day. We changed up the dishes to make delicious food for Su Xinting. We pampered her like a lady of high society. Su Xinting was born selfish and self-centered, never considering anyone else, even if they were her own parents. As a mother, she should have been taking care of the child herself, but she used her poor health as an excuse, saying she couldn't stay up late, and as soon as night fell, she would be fast asleep. So that child was practically raised by my parents. The two of them were already around 50, and they had worn themselves out until they looked like old tree bark. Their dark circles were practically hanging down to the ground. She simply acted as if she couldn't see it, and my parents also made excuses for her, saying that having a child had damaged her vitality and that she needed proper rest. Implicitly, they were saying I was unfilial and didn't know how to help my parents. I made no comment on that. Some exhaustion is brought on by yourself. I had thought the matter would end there. Little did I know that an even bigger surprise was waiting for me later. That day, I was still at work when I suddenly got a call from Lin Shen. He said my parents had brought the child to our house, and he was almost unable to hold them off. He was hiding in the bathroom to make this call to me. After I answered the phone, I rushed back home immediately. By the time I got back, the two sides were still tussling at the doorway. My mom insisted on handing the child in her arms to Lin Shen, while Lin Shen kept waving his hands and didn't dare take him. What are you doing? I suddenly spoke up, and my mom was startled. When she saw it was me, she looked a little guilty. Oh, Cindy is back. Lin Shen, look at you, you even got Cindy called back. She's so busy with work. Lin Shen shrugged at me and gave a wry smile. I instantly understood what he meant. My parents must have taken advantage of the fact that I wasn't home. Since Lin Shen couldn't refuse them, they left the child here to force me to comply. At that thought, my tone was far from polite. Are you done making a scene yet? My mom smiled ingratiatingly. No trouble at all. It's like this, Xinting still hasn't recovered yet, and your dad and I have been worn out these past couple of days by this child, so we were thinking of having you take care of her for a couple of days first. Take care of her for a couple of days. That sounded nice enough. I'm afraid there will be countless more 2-day periods after those 2 days, I said coldly. Then what does that have to do with me? The smile on my mother's face froze. Look at you, child, why do you have to speak so harshly? We're all your family. What do you think our relationship is? Even if you don't want to take care of your sister, you still have parents. don't you? Your parents are already this old. And you're just going to watch us work ourselves to the bone. Doesn't that make you feel bad at all? Your dad's back was so sore the other day he couldn't even straighten up. I looked up at my dad, and he did seem a lot more haggard than the last time I saw him, but what did that have to do with me? Didn't you bring that on yourselves? If you think it's too tiring, then let her mom support her instead. After hearing this, my dad's expression changed, and it looked like he was about to lose his temper again. My mom quickly nudged his arm, signaling him not to get worked up. What followed was basically the same back and forth again and again. They insisted on leaving the child with me, while I firmly refused. The two sides were at an impasse for a time, until the very end, when I wasn't paying attention. My mom threw the child onto the ground and dragged my dad away. That left only Lin Shen and me, standing there in a daze, staring at the child lying on the ground. Things had come to this point, so I decided to ask my mother-in-law to step in, because shortly after Lin Shen was born, his father died. In order to hold the family together, his grandmother developed a very fierce temperament. Back then, she was also an overlord in the village. Very few people could stand against her. It was only in recent years, after Lin Shen got married, that her temper had become somewhat more restrained. After receiving my call, my mother-in-law rushed over from the village immediately. The next day, she came to our door holding that child in her arms. It was said that the scene at the time caused quite a commotion. As soon as my parents saw my mother-in-law carrying a child, they knew something was terribly wrong. As expected, as soon as my parents-in-law saw my parents, they started cursing. They called them shameless old people, saying that at their age they still couldn't act like decent human beings. They only knew how to favor their younger daughter. Even though others weren't willing to raise her child, they still insisted on sending the child over and making things difficult for people. They also said that if they didn't want this child, they should give the child away as soon as possible. The sharpness of her words and the speed of her speech left my parents unable to get a single word in. Su Xinting had been spoiled since childhood and had never seen a scene like this before. Now, being scolded at the doorway by a rural old woman, she could not bear the humiliation, so she started cursing back too. My mother-in-law wasn't afraid at all either. He started cursing at Su Xinting. You still have the nerve to say that? The worst one is you. You had a child and didn't raise it. What kind of mother are you? You keep going to trouble your own older sister every day and making her life miserable. If you can't afford to raise a kid, then don't have one. You had a bastard whose father no one even knows, and you still have the nerve to show up here shamelessly. Do you have any face at all? I'm telling you, if you dare bother my son and my daughter-in-law again, I'll turn your world upside down. After saying that, she tossed the child into Su Xinting's arms, then she went straight into the house. There was a loud crash as she started smashing things. Don't be fooled by how domineering my parents are when facing me. When they run into a shrew, like my mother-in-law, they're completely helpless. They could only watch helplessly as the house was smashed to pieces. After the smashing and wrecking, my mother-in-law came back with her head held high, looking as triumphant as a victorious rooster. As soon as she came back, she wilted. Cindy, do you think I went too far? Your mom was even wiping away tears. After hearing me say it was nothing, my mother-in-law finally let out a long breath. It's not that I'm cold-hearted. Only by doing this could I put an end to my parents' hopes. Otherwise, they would never give up the idea of handing the child over to me. After staying at home for 2 days, my mother-in-law insisted on leaving on the 3rd day. No matter what, the chickens and ducks at home are being looked after by someone. We asked for help, and it's not good to keep troubling others. This time I came in a hurry. Last time your second aunt brought over a lot of mushrooms. Cindy, I saw that you like to eat them, so I'll mail them to you after I get back. Lin Shen, your wife has it hard. You have to treat your wife well, understand? Oh, come on, let's hurry up and go. This city is good in every way, except there's no one to chat with. Honestly, I'd rather go back and chat with those old ladies. That feels much more comfortable. I knew my mother-in-law didn't want to affect us. Although she was born in the countryside, she was a remarkably clear-headed old woman. She knew that even the best mother-in-law and daughter-in-law would still have conflicts after living together for a long time. So she simply chose not to herself in our lives and let each of us live our own life. It was precisely because of my mother-in-law's sense of boundaries that I dared to ask her for this favor. As I expected, after this time, my parents never brought up the idea of having me raise a child again. I finally got to enjoy a few peaceful days, but later I learned that all the peaceful and quiet days are only possible because someone is shouldering the burden for you. The child was sent by them to be raised by my cousin-in-law. That's the one who said I was lucky to become a mom painlessly. She's almost 40 this year, and ever since she had a son a few years ago, her belly hasn't had any movement since. She has always dreamed of having a sweet, soft little daughter. I have to say, she was also a bit of an airhead. After witnessing all of this, she still had the courage to raise Su Xinting's child. When they found out she wanted the child, my parents were overjoyed and packed up the child's things and delivered them over that very day. If the story had ended here, it would still have been a pretty good ending, but Su Xinting was just asking for trouble. She didn't know what had gotten into her. But she suddenly awakened to maternal love. It wasn't that she was being picky about the formula my cousin-in-law used for the baby, or that the diapers she bought were no good. My cousin-in-law hadn't taken care of a child for a long time, and thought she really had been shortchanging the baby, so she changed them several times according to Su Xinting's demands. But she never expected that my sister-in-law's lifelong compromise would actually lead Su Xinting to push her luck even further. Over the next period of time, she completely lost her mind. In the end, my sister-in-law, unable to bear the constant harassment, sent the child back again. Su Xinting had finally settled down. In order to keep Su Xinting focused and stop her from making a scene, my parents began asking around to find her a match, but now Su Xinting had nothing, and she also had a burden in tow. Anyone with decent conditions would simply not consider her, those with poor conditions, those who were divorced, those who were not good-looking, those with children. Su Xinting looked down on all of them. She even scolded the matchmaker who had been trying to arrange a marriage for her. The matchmaker turned around and spread the word about it. Now no one dared take on the job. She found it boring to stay at home, so she made up an excuse that she was going out to work and ran off again. But it wasn't long before she came back again, and this time, she had a blonde-haired guy with her. She said she was going to marry that blonde-haired guy. Everyone was utterly shocked. They had only known each other for a short time, and he hadn't even been to her home before he was already shouting about getting married. The key point was that the bleached blonde guy clearly didn't look like a good person, and he was acting all arrogant as if he were some big shot. His only advantage was that he was good-looking. After the bleached blonde guy arrived, he started bossing everyone around at home, and even said that if Su Xinting married him, she would have to bring a 200,000 yuan dowry. Her parents disagreed, and Su Xinting cried and made a scene, threatening to go on a hunger strike. This time, her parents hardened their hearts too and told Su Xinting that if she didn't want to eat, then she didn't have to eat, and they even locked her in her room. But who would have thought she actually slit her wrists in the middle of the night? It was only because her parents felt something was off that they discovered it. Su Xinting was rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, it was discovered early, and there was nothing serious. She just needed some rest and recovery. After this incident, both mom and dad were thoroughly frightened and no longer dared to stop Su Xinting, afraid that she might do something foolish again. But unexpectedly, trouble cropped up on Huang Mao's side again. It turned out that Su Xinting had never told the blonde-haired guy that she also had a child only a few months old. What she told him was that the child was mine, and because I was busy with work, we had left him at home to be raised. The blonde-haired guy wasn't stupid. After staying there for 2 days, he saw through the whole situation, so he came up with new demands. The first was that the child absolutely could not be brought back. My parents would have to keep raising him. Second, the dowry has to be increased by another 100,000. My parents were furious. But Su Xinting cried and said that she had already had a child before marriage. Her reputation was ruined. She had no job, and what kind of man could she still hope to find, now that she had finally found someone willing to marry her? So be it. My parents called me, hoping I could talk Su Xinting out of it, but I told them I had no way either. Su Xinting is both vicious and stupid. This can be seen from the fact that after she found out she was pregnant, she didn't hurry to get an abortion while it was still early. Instead, she insisted on dragging it out until 8 months. If I tried to persuade her, it would definitely backfire. Besides, everyone has their own path to walk. Respecting others' fate and letting go of my savior complex is what I should really do. A few months later, Su Xinting and Huang Mao really got married, but this was the beginning of her suffering. No matter how unruly she had been before, her parents would always be there to catch her when she fell. But after marrying the blonde-haired thug, she could no longer be her little princess. Not only did she have to go out to work, but after coming home she also had to do the laundry and cook, and even wait on the blonde-haired thug, who spent all day at home playing video games. If she was even slightly careless, she would be beaten and verbally abused by the blonde-haired thug. Come to think of it, it was rather strange. The woman she had been before was arrogant and domineering, never willing to suffer the slightest loss, yet after getting married, she had actually fallen so far that even after being beaten, she didn't dare tell her family. Even so, her trying to swallow her grievances and keep the peace still did not lead to a good outcome. After the blonde-haired girl spent all the money, she ran off. When she came back again, everyone realized that she had changed a lot and was no longer as willful and overbearing as before, but she was no longer as lively as she had been before either. That night, when she went to sleep, her mother also found marks on her arm from being burned by cigarette butts. Her mother cried heartbrokenly, but she showed no expression at all. When my mother told me this news, I only felt extremely surprised. The Su Xinting, who had always refused to suffer even the slightest loss, had actually been worn down by life to this state. I don't know whether she ever regretted her past willfulness. After this, her parents no longer allowed her to go out and planned to keep her at home, then find a reliable man for her. Not long after, they really did find such a man. He was 3 years older than her, had been married before, and had no children. Although he wasn't very good looking, he was honest and down to earth. He also said that after the wedding, the child could be brought over, and he would raise the child. Her parents were both very happy, and Su Xinting also nodded in agreement, but I never expected that less than 3 months after getting married, she ran off again. She didn't tell anyone, and no one knew what she was thinking. I can only say that it's easy to change a river's course, but hard to change one's nature. She never thought about it. If she left, her child would still be staying in someone else's home. In the end, that child still ended up in my parents' hands. When I used to bring her home, I would always buy her pretty clothes and dress her up like a little princess. But now, after all, it's the elderly taking care of her. They're not meticulous enough, and they don't have enough energy. Even if they felt sorry for her, they only cared whether she could eat enough and stay warm. Beyond that, they couldn't spare any attention. Whenever I brought my daughter back home from time to time, she would always show a very envious expression toward her. Once, she even said to me, "Auntie, can I live with you?" I looked at her little face and quickly refused. This time, I would absolutely never leave any hidden danger in my daughter's life again. When my daughter was in her 3rd year of middle school, due to a job transfer, our whole family moved to the south. From then on, we completely stayed away from that place of trouble. After my rebirth, many times I would have nightmares at night, dreaming of my daughter jumping from a high-rise building, blood spilling all over the ground. When I woke up, I would be so frightened that I couldn't fall back asleep. Lin Shen always said I was paying too much attention to our daughter, but he didn't know that in my previous life, it was precisely my carelessness that led to our daughter's early death. So in this life, no matter what I have to pay or how many people I offend, I will protect her with unwavering determination, even if I become the unfilial son in my parents' eyes. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. As graduation approached, my roommate Li Chinxue suddenly applied to drop out, saying she wanted to become the pampered wife and boss lady at her boyfriend's shop. Both my academic advisor and I felt her boyfriend's motives were suspicious and advised her to get her diploma first. After much hesitation, she lied to her boyfriend, saying the advisor wouldn't process the paperwork for her. After graduation, Li Chinxue landed a job at a major company, met a tall, rich, and handsome man, and immediately dumped her boyfriend. It turned out that her boyfriend held a grudge and drove his car to kill the counselor. At the memorial service, I stepped forward to bow and offer flowers. Li Chinxue, however, looked disdainful. What does her death have to do with me? I didn't do it. Suddenly, a loud thunderclap echoed in the sky, and the counselor was reborn in a flash of light. I was caught up in the incident because I was too close and was forced to be reborn together. Damn it, my top scores in both the written exam and the interview are gone just like that. When I opened my eyes again, Li Chinxue was applying to drop out of school. The counselor across from me was desperately trying to signal me with his eyes. Teacher Gong, I want to apply for a leave of absence and would like to inquire about the process. When that familiar phrase echoed in my ears once more, I looked around in disbelief and found myself sitting in the counselor's office, and the counselor, Gong Xiaoxi, who had already passed away, was sitting right across from me. I was so frightened that I nearly jumped out of my skin and almost fell off the chair. Li Chinxue gave me a strange look. Wen Xiaoyu, why are you so excited? I took a few deep breaths, pressed my heart that was about to leap out, and forced myself to calm down. I vaguely remember being struck by lightning at the counselor's memorial service. Could it be a dream? I took out my phone and realized I had actually traveled back in time by 6 months. Li Chinxue continued to ask about the documents and procedures needed for dropping out. Just as I was about to speak, I noticed Teacher Gong across from me giving me a meaningful look and gently shaking her head. Just as I was stunned, She had already handed the withdrawal application form and the required document list to Li Chinxue. He didn't say a word the whole time. Li Chinxue put away the form and happily pulled me away. I couldn't help but look back and notice that Teacher Gong was also looking at me. A sudden thought crossed my mind. Teacher Gong must have been reborn too, in her previous life. Li Chinxue insisted on dropping out of school, saying she wanted to become the boss lady. At her boyfriend's clothing store, her boyfriend, Zhong Kai, started a women's clothing business right after graduating from technical school. According to Li Chinxue, the store was doing quite well. At that time, we were all overwhelmed by our graduation theses. Zhong Kai took the opportunity to tell Li Chinxue that she might as well drop out and become his boss lady. With such a big business, supporting her would be a piece of cake, wouldn't it? She was moved and insisted on dragging me along to find the counselor to apply for dropping out. Teacher Gong, though not old, was very responsible. She didn't immediately process Li Chinxue's application but patiently asked for the reasons, advising her not to act on impulse. Li Chinxue said she was overwhelmed by her graduation thesis, with many experimental data differing from expectations, and her supervisor seemed to be targeting her. Now that she has a better way out, why not take it? Anyway, the job market is so competitive these days. Having an extra master's degree won't really solve much. Although Zhong Kai only graduated from a technical secondary school, he still made a fortune through his business. Professor Liu is a bit more serious and strict with her students, but she treats everyone equally and isn't targeting you specifically. I'll go talk to her. It would be such a shame to give up now, just as you're about to graduate. Besides, your boyfriend's thinking is a bit odd. If he truly cared about you, why would he urge you to give up at the last moment? Teacher Gong tried to persuade her earnestly, and I also felt her idea was too unrealistic. As far as I know, Li Chinxue's parents are very strict with her, so she must have kept this matter hidden from her family. I showed her the news data, explaining that the current women's clothing market is far less profitable than it was a few years ago. Online women's clothing stores are constantly troubled by extremely high return rates, not to mention offline stores, where both revenue and profit margins have been continuously declining. Our major is still quite in demand right now. Wouldn't it be better to graduate smoothly and join a large company? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Besides, running a business and getting a diploma aren't mutually exclusive. After our reasoned and well-supported persuasion, Li Chinxue finally gave up the idea of dropping out and obediently went back to preparing her graduation thesis. 6 months later, all of us in the dorm graduated smoothly. I successfully passed the exam with the top scores in both the written test and the interview, and Li Chinxue also successfully received an offer from a multinational company. We went to eat hot pot together to celebrate. At the dinner table, Li Chinxue mentioned how she had broken up with Zhong Kai. Another roommate, Yang Yang, teased her with a laugh. "Oh, so you're not dreaming of being the boss's wife anymore?" Li Chinxue stirred the drink in her hand and snorted coldly. "Ha, listen to his nonsense." I kept my guard up and found out that his family's shop was doing okay a few years ago, but now it's getting worse by the day. It's about to go under soon. Now that I've landed such a great job, there are so many outstanding single young men waiting for me. With his low education level, we've long had nothing in common. Little did anyone expect that on the very night we went out to celebrate, Zhong Kai sneaked into the school to seek revenge on Li Chinxue. Our dorm room was dark, and he came up empty-handed. As he was leaving, he ran into Teacher Gong, who was on duty. It wasn't until the next day that I learned the tragic news of Teacher Gong's passing. When the police came to the dorm to investigate and collect evidence, Li Chinxue finally turned pale and told the truth. It turned out she was afraid Zhong Kai would be unhappy, so she made up a reason, saying Teacher Gong wouldn't process her paperwork and even threatened to notify her parents. Zhong Kai was furious and cursed Teacher Gong for meddling in other people's business. Last night, after drinking some alcohol, he had intended to settle scores with Li Chinxue but ran into Teacher Gong, who was on duty. He remembered it was all because Teacher Gong had intervened that Li Chinxue failed to successfully drop out, and now she looked down on him even more. So, on a sudden impulse and seeing no one around, he floored the accelerator. Teacher Gong was thrown several meters away and died on the spot. At the memorial service, my heart was heavy with grief. Although Teacher Gong was our academic advisor, she was only a few years older than us. She was warm-hearted and responsible, always ready to help us with any difficulties we faced in our studies or daily lives. More importantly, she had just gotten married, and her baby was less than half a year old. All the students in our class attended the memorial service. Just as I was about to step forward to offer flowers, I heard Li Chinxue muttering complaints. "What does her death have to do with me? It's not like I did it. If she had bad luck, can you blame me? Ugh, I finally managed to book an appointment with a Korean doctor, and now I have to reschedule. Mess. Gong was implicated because of her lies and killed by that beast Jong Kai. She actually has the nerve to complain about rescheduling her cosmetic procedure. If the auditorium weren't so solemn and dignified, I'd really want to slap her twice. I glared fiercely at Li Chinxue, placed a bouquet of pure white chrysanthemums in front of Teacher Gong's memorial tablet, and bowed deeply. At that moment, a sudden clap of thunder seemed to explode right beside my ear. After a blinding flash of white light, I plunged into darkness. In the last second before losing consciousness, I seemed to hear Teacher Gong's voice. Please give me a chance to be reborn. I want revenge. Returning to the dormitory again, my heart was filled with complex emotions. I was happy that Teacher Gong had regained his life, but sad that my chance to succeed was gone. That was the result of my hard work day and night. Li Chinxue was extremely happy, humming a little tune as she filled out the withdrawal application form. Yang Yang asked curiously, Xiaoxue, graduation is just around the corner, why are you being so unreasonable? Li Chinxue snorted proudly, my boyfriend said he'll take care of me and let me be the boss's wife and enjoy life. To hell with the graduation thesis, what's the point of getting a diploma? Anyway, it's just going out to work for someone else. Wouldn't it be much better to be your own boss than to be a cog in the capitalist machine? What's so great about big companies? You get laid off by the age of 35, TSK. Just thinking about it is so pitiful. Yang Yang's biggest wish was to land a job at a big company, but in Li Chinxue's words, it became the most worthless cog in the machine. She turned and walked away with a grim expression. Li Chinxue turned her head to me. Xiaoyu, do you think I'm right? I immediately smiled and responded to her, absolutely right. It's a pity I don't have your conditions. I can only go to be a working dog. Zhong Kai is really good to you. I envy you so much. Li Chinxue became even more proud. She climbed onto the bed and called Zhong Kai, darling, I've already submitted the application today. Please tidy up the room and wait for your sweet wife to move in. Not long after Li Chinxue's withdrawal procedures were completed, I suspect that Teacher Gong, fearing she might change her mind, expedited the process for her. She happily dragged her luggage and got into Zhong Kai's car. Yang Yang asked me, Xiaoyu, Zhong Kai has been in business for many years. Is he particularly wealthy? I sneered, recalling what Li Chinxue had said in my previous life. Zhong Kai's women's clothing store couldn't withstand the successive price impacts from e-commerce, and it had long been operating at a loss, on the verge of collapse. It's just that she doesn't know it yet. Of course, I didn't need to tell her either. Just as I expected, within 2 months, Li Chinxue came running back to complain to us. Su Kai's family business was indeed doing well a few years ago, with several storefronts. However, as the women's clothing industry became increasingly competitive and e-commerce rose, all the money they had earned ended up being lost. Now, they only have one store left, and they can barely afford the rent. What's even more absurd is that Zhong Kai couldn't pay the staff's wages, and just last month, the last employee also resigned. He said he wanted her to be the boss's wife, but in reality, he was just coaxing her into being free labor. Every day, she had to sell goods, count inventory, organize stock, and even clean up. When has she ever suffered like this? Fortunately, her future mother-in-law is kind and caring, checking in on her every day and promising that her hard work won't go unrewarded. She even assured her that she would be in charge of the shop's earnings in the future, which made her feel that the effort was worthwhile. At the moment, her top priority is figuring out how to increase the shop's revenue. She came back this time to ask if we would be willing to work part-time at the shop. As for wages, they could be paid in clothing. Zhong Kai's shop has many beautiful clothes, all of which are high-end items. Of course, we all refused. Now is the critical time for busy exams and graduation. Who has the spare time for that? Moreover, she is unwilling to pay wages. From Li Chinxue's current attire, it's clear that what she's wearing isn't high-end at all. It's just cheap, mass-produced stuff. After a while, she decided to shift her focus online and start a live stream to sell clothes. This was Zhong Kai's idea. Since she couldn't beat them, she might as well join them. He said that his fellow brothers in the industry only turned losses into profits by operating online live streaming rooms. After his persuasion, Li Chinxue decided to give it a try. Soon, Zhong Kai brought a young female streamer for an interview, claiming she was introduced by a brother and had extensive live streaming experience. The female streamer was indeed very beautiful and had a great figure, but her asking price was also high. Broadcasting for 2 hours a day costs 1,000. Additionally, a 10% commission is taken from the profit of each piece of clothing. Li Chinchua originally didn't intend to agree so quickly, but the female anchor was pressing urgently, saying that if this side couldn't make a decision, she would sign a contract with another company. Li Chinchua had no choice but to agree. After signing the contract, Zhong Kai said he had just paid 6 months' rent for the shop, and his pockets were emptier than his face. Li Chinchua was stunned. What do you mean? Are you planning to have me pay the streamer's salary? You haven't paid me for all the work I've done in the shop for so long. Where would I get the money? Zhong Kai coaxed her. Sweetheart, don't you have a credit card? The peak season for summer clothing sales is coming up soon, and we absolutely have to seize this opportunity. We're a family now, so why distinguish between yours and mine? You're the boss's wife. When there are benefits in the future, how could you possibly be left out? Zhong Kai's mother also chimed in, saying she had poured a lot of effort into this shop, treating it like her own child, and couldn't just stand by and watch it go bankrupt. At the emotional peak, she even threatened to kneel down for her. Under the combined persuasion of Zhong Kai and his mother, Li Chinchua had no choice but to cash out 20,000 yuan from her credit card to give to the female streamer. Now, the credit card bill is about to come due, and she wants to borrow some money from me. I refused without a second thought. She slumped into the chair, looking utterly dejected as she lit a cigarette. Noticing my strange gaze, she smiled self-deprecatingly and said, I just picked it up. Sometimes I have to sort goods until midnight, and I get so exhausted that coffee doesn't help anymore. Smoking is the only thing that keeps me awake. Life is just too hard. It was better when I was in school. I really wish I could go back to studying. Li Chinchua really went to ask the counselor. Teacher Gong refused without even thinking about it. All the procedures had been completed, and her student status and files had already been returned by the school. If she wanted to come back to study, she could only do so by taking the entrance exam. Teacher Gong took a sip of coffee and said, she's just acting on a whim, treating the school like a marketplace. After being reborn, she saw her soft and adorable daughter again and kept her distance from Li Chinchua, that troublemaker. However, Li Chinchua was so busy every day that she had no time to review or study. How could she take the exam? The female host was only responsible for live streaming try-ons, while Zhong Kai was always busy with who knows what, and Zhong Kai's mother often excused herself by saying she was too old and unwell. All the store's responsibilities were left to her alone. Li Chinchua was filled with resentment, and whenever she caught Zhong Kai, she would start an argument. Finally, one day, Zhong Kai hit her. She came to school with a bruised and swollen face, crying and sobbing, saying she wanted to break up with Zhong Kai and reapply for university. Not long after, Zhong Kai showed up with a grim expression. Zhong Kai's mother followed closely behind. In front of us, Zhong Kai's mother punched him hard several times. With reddened eyes, she apologized to Li Chinchua, saying that Zhong Kai had just been confused for a moment and begged her not to take it to heart. Zhong Kai also slapped himself twice, saying he was just too aggrieved. The reason he had been so busy and out of sight every day was that he was searching for good sources of goods, now that their shop was just starting to take off. They pleaded with her not to give up so easily. I almost laughed out loud listening to this. When Li Chinchua's graduation thesis first encountered a slight setback, Zhong Kai would brainwash her every day, urging her to give up. He would constantly repeat the phrase, "Nothing is difficult in the world if you are willing to give up." Now that it concerns his own interests, he keeps saying, "Don't give up." The commotion grew quite loud, and soon Teacher Gong rushed over. When she saw Zhong Kai, her entire body tensed up, and her hands clenched tightly into fists. I knew she was remembering the hatred from her previous life, but in this life, Zhong Kai had done nothing to her, and acting rashly would only affect her work, so I quietly stood beside Teacher Gong and subtly patted her shoulder. Teacher Gong understood immediately. After steadying herself, she put on a nonchalant smile and invited Zhong Kai, his mother, and Li Chinchua into the office. Zhong Kai's mother was particularly good with words. She took my hand and said, "Li Chinchua's family is in another city, so we are her closest relatives here, equivalent to half of her own family." She urged us to persuade her, saying, "Running a business is always busy and tiring. When I was young, I went south to Guangzhou to source goods. To save money, I always took the cheapest hard seats, which took a full day and night." As she spoke, she wiped the corner of her eye sadly, hugged Li Chinchua, and said, "Child, Zhong Kai's father passed away early, and I suffered too much when I was young. Now that I'm old and useless, please don't blame me, okay? Zhong Kai truly cares for you, and I've always treated you like my own daughter." As she spoke, she took off the gold ring from her hand and pressed it into Li Qinshue's palm. Seeing this, the others all remarked that Li Qinshu had encountered a reasonable and understanding mother-in-law. Seizing the opportunity, Zhong Kai's mother patted her chest again, assuring her that she would never treat her poorly in the future. Besides, since the introduction of the online live streaming room, business has improved significantly compared to before, and better days are just around the corner. Under the combined sweet talk and grand promises from Zhong Kai and his mother, Li Qinshu went back with Zhong Kai once again, because, as Zhong Kai had said, since the streamers arrived, the store's business had indeed improved a lot. She has already given so much and hasn't gained any benefits yet. It really doesn't seem worthwhile to quit now. However, as business improves, she will inevitably face many online orders and a doubled workload. In addition to sorting and shipping goods, Li Qinshu now also works as a live streaming assistant. Before going to bed at night, she has to organize the products to be broadcast the next day and write the accompanying copy. She was simply too busy and wanted to hire 2 assistants. However, Zhong Kai said that the female streamer, seeing the shop's business improve, had asked for another raise, and he really didn't have any extra money to hire more staff. Li Qinshu couldn't take it anymore and had another big argument with Zhong Kai. Zhong Kai shamelessly claimed that the improvement in the shop's business was all thanks to the female streamer, and all she did was just assist, something anyone with a brain could do. Li Qinshu was so angry that she fainted on the spot. It was only after being admitted to the hospital that they discovered she was actually pregnant. After waking up, she called me crying, "Xiaoyu, what should I do now? I had already made up my mind to break up with him, but now I'm pregnant." Woo-woo, I pretended to be concerned and asked, "So what are you planning to do now, break up or get married?" She just kept crying, saying her mind was in a mess, and she had no family around, asking if I could go and keep her company. I wanted to refuse, but I also wanted to see the show. After much hesitation, I still ran to the hospital. As a result, I ran into Zhong Kai and his mother downstairs. Zhong Kai's mother said happily, "Son, you're so capable, you only had to puncture the safety measures twice to get her pregnant. Now I'm not afraid she'll threaten to break up again." As she spoke, she curled her lips coldly. "This girl is too restless. She's already dropped out of school, yet she still dreams of retaking the exam to go back. What a fantasy," Zhong Kai said with a grim expression. "Thanks to your carefulness in noticing she wanted to return to school, this time it's settled. Once her belly gets big, I'd like to see which university would still want her." Once they entered the hospital room, the two of them instantly changed their expressions. They kept calling me the great hero and the precious one, and Zhong Kai's mother even magically produced a flat red envelope. Li Qinshu regained some face in front of me, and her expression finally improved slightly. When Zhong Kai saw that I was also there, he looked wary. "Hey, Xiaoyu, what brings you here? Did Xiaoxue call you over?" Li Qinshue's face flashed with a hint of panic as she quickly interjected, No, Xiaoyu's relative is also in the hospital, we just happened to run into each other." Zhong Kai casually made polite conversation. "Oh, are you pretty busy these days?" I nodded with a smile. "Yes, I just passed my graduation thesis, and now I'm preparing for the civil service exam." Upon hearing this, Li Qinshue's face instantly darkened, and she stared at me with eyes full of jealousy. Zhong Kai wrapped his arm around her shoulder and took out a jewelry box from his pocket. "By the way, honey, I picked this out especially for you. Do you like it?" Inside was a delicate, plain K-gold ring. Li Qinshu happily put it on her finger, then turned and gave him a loud kiss on the cheek. "Thank you, sweetheart." Zhong Kai was beaming with pride, as if deliberately saying it for me to hear. "By the way, dear, our revenue last month exceeded 200,000 yuan, we're about to strike it rich." This statement was like a shot of adrenaline, instantly rejuvenating Li Qinshu. She shook off her previous despondency and immediately became smug again. She glanced at me. "Oh, I accidentally succeeded. I always said that if you want to make money, you have to go into business. Xiaoyu, what's the point of you taking that civil service exam? Even if you pass, you won't earn much money each month. Why don't you just come work as a shop assistant for me? I'll pay you a higher salary. How about 2,000 yuan? As for bonuses, you can pick any clothes from the store." I could barely hold back my smile as I stood up to leave. "No need, I have more clothes than I can wear. I'm heading out now, take good care of yourself." I stepped out the door but wasn't in a hurry to leave. I had long sensed they still had something to say. Only after I left did Zhong Kai and his mother let out a sigh of relief. Zhong Kai spoke first. Honey, it's time to pay the female streamer's salary and commission. I don't have that much on hand right now, could you take out some money first? Li Chinchue immediately became unhappy. Are you asking me for money again? I'm already struggling to pay off my credit card bills in installments. Besides, why are you giving her such a high bonus? It feels like we're working for nothing. Zhong Kai explained that the female host had experience, and the try-on effect was good. Many stores wanted to poach her. She was definitely going to ask for a raise. Besides, e-commerce is highly competitive now. We can start by focusing on volume, building a wave of reputation. Once the reputation is solid, won't there be plenty of opportunities to make big money? Zhong Kai's mother chimed in as well. Suffering a bit now is all for creating better conditions for the child. Look at your college classmates, working for others. Even if they work themselves to death, they still only get that fixed salary. You're different. The money you'll earn in the future will all be your own. Can they compare to that? Li Chinchue felt that what she said made sense, but she really couldn't come up with the money. Seeing the timing was right, Zhong Kai suggested she ask her parents for some money, saying she was going into business with someone. However, Li Chinchue's attempt to get the money did not go smoothly. Teacher Gong called me early in the morning, saying that Li Chinchue had approached her to inquire about loans and even wanted to apply for a loan in the name of a student. Of course, she flatly refused. Then she reminded me not to lend her any money. She definitely won't be able to repay it because she has already had a falling out with her family. It turned out that Li Chinchue really took Zhong Kai's advice and went to ask her parents for money. As a result, she was scolded harshly by her father. Her family had long known about her dropping out of school and living with a man. Her clever plan was to keep it from her family and then fake a graduation certificate to fool her parents when the time came, but she never expected the school to send some of the withdrawal materials directly to her home. Li Chinchue's parents have always been strict and cared deeply about face. When they found out, they were furious and decided to sever ties with her. Teacher Gong said, I was just following the procedures. She left in such a hurry back then, and many of her materials were never collected. So, I had no choice but to send them to the address she provided when she enrolled. This approach is both compliant and reasonable. Nothing wrong with it. Sure enough, as soon as I hung up the phone, Li Chinchue called the dormitory. Yang Yang answered the phone. She tearfully complained about her family's heartlessness, saying they had abandoned their daughter just for a diploma, and she wanted to sue her parents for abandonment. I almost laughed out loud. She's in her 20s, and just because she can't freeload off her parents, she calls it abandonment. Then, she abruptly changed the subject and asked, Yang Yang, could you lend me some money to help me out? My family's business has been doing really well lately. I'll pay you back as soon as the payment comes in. I quickly shook my head at Yang Yang. Yang Yang was even more ruthless than me and directly pressed the speakerphone button. You're already a big boss. Why are you still borrowing money from us small fries? Cece also laughed. Yeah, we were even wondering if we'd have the honor of accompanying you to ring the bell at Nasdaq. Li Chinchue was so angry she was gasping for breath. Seeing this, I quickly walked over to smooth things over. Hey, sisters, they were just joking with you. They heard your monthly turnover broke 200,000, and they're all happy for you. If you ask me, if the family won't give you money, just think of other ways. You'll earn it back in no time anyway. If the business grows, you'll be the hero of the Zhong family. As I had expected, Li Chinchue ended up borrowing from a loan shark and poured all the money into the store. We have no idea where exactly it was spent. I had someone who knows the business look at her online store's data, and that person frowned immediately. If this return rate could make money, I'd be a ghost. Could it be that your classmate has been deceived? I recalled Zhong Kai's shifty-eyed appearance, and honestly, it's quite possible. Now there's going to be some drama to watch. After the graduation certificates were issued, our class organized a graduation dinner and specifically invited Teacher Gong to express our gratitude for her guidance and support over the years. After eating and drinking our fill, Teacher Gong and I walked to the bus stop. While chatting, she took out her phone to show me cute photos and videos of her daughter. The little girl had big, bright eyes, was clever and adorable, and had already learned to say, Mama. As she looked at the photos, her eyes grew red. In her previous life, she died before her child was weaned, and now she finally has the chance to watch her daughter grow up. My heart is also filled with mixed emotions. I am the only one who knows she has been reborn. We guessed that it must have been because I was too close to her when I offered the flowers, so I was also pulled back 6 months by this mysterious force. The only regret is that all my civil service exam results are gone. She once felt deeply apologetic about it, but I patted her shoulder and said I didn't mind. Nothing is more precious than life. Teacher Gong is a good teacher, and she deserves a better life. As for the civil service exam, I can start preparing again. While luck played a part in me ranking first last time, I believe I can still pass if I retake it. After all, I still remember some of the questions. While we were joking around, I saw Li Chinchua walking alone on the street, looking dazed. Her belly had grown noticeably larger, and she looked heavier overall. Her greasy long hair hung loose, and she wore a rustic-looking dress that made her appear both clumsy and unkempt. We watched as she went from one bank to another, asking each one if they could grant her a loan. At the last bank, she even knelt down in front of the staff. The security guard was so startled that he quickly escorted her out. We followed her all the way to the riverbank. Li Chinchua stared blankly at the water, standing there for a very long time. I think her mental state is off. Could she be planning to jump into the river? Teacher Gong asked me nervously. As soon as she finished speaking, Li Chinchua stepped over the guardrail and actually jumped in. Before I could even react, Teacher Gong beside me dashed over in a flash and immediately jumped in to save the person. I know she's a strong swimmer, but isn't your mentor spirit burning a bit too intensely at the wrong time? The crowd by the bridge quickly organized themselves, with some calling the police and others helping with the rescue. In no time, Li Chinchua was pulled to safety. She choked on a few mouthfuls of water and lost consciousness, then was taken to the hospital. Looking at Teacher Gong, who was completely soaked, I had a million things I wanted to say in my mind. Teacher Gong said she knew what I wanted to say, but in her previous life, the one who harmed her was Zhong Kai, not Li Chinchua. She is a people's teacher and cannot stand by and watch someone die without trying to save them. I had no choice but to sigh helplessly. She is truly a good person, just too much of a saint. Zhong Kai and his mother quickly rushed to the hospital. Upon learning that Li Chinchua was fine but had suffered a miscarriage, they flew into a rage. They even suspiciously asked if we were following Li Chinchua and threatened to call the police to arrest us. As soon as I saw their sneaky behavior, I knew something was definitely not right. Li Chinchua in the hospital room had already woken up and was now going crazy, cursing Zhong Kai and his mother for being heartless. It turned out that after she had borrowed from every possible source, Zhong Kai and his mother couldn't be bothered to keep up the act anymore. They revealed their ferocious true faces. Li Chinchua's belly was getting bigger and bigger, and she really couldn't handle so much work anymore. She wanted Zhong Kai's mother to lend a hand, at least to help her cook a meal, but ended up being scolded by Zhong Kai's mother, who pointed at her nose. A daughter-in-law actually wanting her mother-in-law to serve her is simply disloyal, unfilial, and utterly rebellious. She wanted to hire 2 people to help, but Zhong Kai still threw up his hands and said 2 words: no money. They argued countless times over this. Later, Li Chinchua went on strike and ran away from home, but she was pregnant and had no money, so she really had nowhere else to go. After wandering for a day and a night, she ultimately had to return to Zhong Kai's home. Zhong Kai had her under his thumb, beating her up whenever she didn't work. Zhong Kai's mother even boasted that she was too far along in her pregnancy to have an abortion. In her current state, no company would want her, and no other man would take her on. Even her own family had kicked her out. Now only they are willing to take in this worthless burden of hers, which is a tremendous blessing. Seeing Zhong Kai and his mother storm into the hospital room aggressively, Li Chinchua immediately trembled like a sieve. Zhong Kai's mother rushed over and swiftly slapped her across the face. I told you you're a worthless burden. My precious grandson was lost because of you. Li Chinchua looked utterly cowardly, not daring to resist in the slightest, clearly having been beaten frequently in the past. You owe me my grandson. Instead of working at home, you're always running around everywhere. I'll beat you to death. At that moment, Zhong Kai also approached her with a menacing look. She didn't know what had gotten into her, but she actually pointed at Teacher Gong and shouted loudly, "Don't hit me, I didn't jump on my own. It was her, she pushed me down." Teacher Gong's eyes widened in shock. Zhong Kai's mother's eyes darted around, and she immediately sat on the ground, throwing a tantrum. "I knew you were up to no good. My daughter-in-law just dropped out of your class. Why did you have to harm her? Are you even fit to be a teacher? Everyone, come and see. A teacher is taking revenge on a student, causing the death of my grandson. I want you to pay with your life." Zhong Kai was cursing and swearing, and as soon as he came up, he was about to throw a punch. I rushed forward and caught his fist with my palm. With a forceful twist of my wrist, I made him yelp in pain. Then, with a sweeping leg kick, I sent him tumbling face first into the mud. I assumed a stance, raised my middle finger at him, and flashed an internationally friendly gesture. Just kidding, I've actually trained in martial arts seriously. Currently, I am at the intermediate level of 5th degree Silver Tiger and am striving for the 6th degree. Whether it's fist techniques, weapons, or free combat, I can handle them all with ease. He was lucky in his previous life. When we went out for hot pot, he happened to run into Teacher Gong, who was alone. Martial artists do not bully the weak, but if it had been me who encountered him in my previous life, I would have beaten him until he was searching for his teeth on the ground. Zhong Kai was terrified and dared not make any more moves, but he threatened to report it to the school and get Teacher Gong fired. Fortunately, I had the foresight to add a few concerned bystanders on WeChat at the scene. I placed the organized witness statements on the school leader's desk, immediately clearing Teacher Gong of suspicion. The school also publicly commended Teacher Gong for his act of bravery. Teacher Gong thanked me somewhat sheepishly. You really thought things through. At the time, when I saw her jump into the river, my mind went blank. I only thought about saving her as quickly as possible. I never imagined she would turn around and accuse me. I still remember when she first entered school, she even ran for class secretary. Such an active and positive child. How could she have become like this? Actually, I understand Teacher Gong too. After completing her PhD, she stayed on at the university directly, and her husband is also a university teacher. She has always been in the ivory tower, losing touch with the harsh realities of society, instinctively wanting to help people in trouble. Aligns with her consistent character. I sighed and earnestly said to her, Teacher Gong, don't forget the purpose of your rebirth. You are here to save yourself, not to save her. After being severely reprimanded by me, Zhong Kai and his mother indeed didn't dare to cause trouble at the hospital again. On the contrary, they abandoned Li Chinxue at the hospital and didn't even pay the medical bills when they were due. Li Chinxue has been working for Zhong Kai Bai for the better part of the year, not only without receiving a single penny in wages but also ending up with a pile of debt. Now, she has completely alienated her classmates and teachers. Her situation has become a major scandal, and everyone in the school knows about it. No one is willing to have anything to do with her anymore. It was only after she cried and knelt down, begging her parents for a long time, that they reluctantly agreed to help her pay off the overdue medical bills. But her parents also said that the family had recently been receiving all sorts of harassing debt collection calls, and some people even claimed to be her creditors, showing up at their doorstep to threaten and intimidate them. Her elderly grandmother, upon learning of this, was so enraged that she suffered a relapse of her heart condition and did not survive the emergency treatment. Now they have moved away, telling her to take care of herself and not to contact them again in the future. Li Chinxue had nowhere to go at all. After she was discharged from the hospital, she discovered that Zhong Kai's family had already packed up and fled. Once, when I passed by the street where Zhong Kai had his shop, I found that he had sublet the store to a restaurant. Li Chinxue wandered around that street every day like a ghost. I've seen her several times when I passed by in a car. However, Zhong Kai ran away, and those debt collectors wouldn't let her off. They bombarded her phone every day and posted her nude photos and contact information on some shady websites, forcing her to take orders to repay the debt. During a crackdown on prostitution, she was arrested. I don't know what she was thinking, but she actually gave out the school's name and Teacher Gong's contact information. The police notified Teacher Gong to come to the police station to understand the situation. It was only then discovered that Li Chinxue's memory had become confused, and she was already somewhat disoriented. Since she was coerced, she was released. After being detained for a few months, she was sometimes lucid and sometimes confused, still loitering around Zhong Kai's house, not knowing what she was waiting for. I was busy preparing for interviews and rarely went out during that time. The next time I heard news of Li Chinxue, it was that she had killed someone. It turned out that she had discovered Zhong Kai's house listed for sale in the window of a street-side real estate agency. She hangs around that area every day just to wait for Zhong Kai to appear. After waiting for about a month, she finally encountered the real estate agent bringing buyers to view the house, with Zhong Kai's family following along. That female streamer was actually there too. Zhong Kai's mother kept praising the female streamer for being beautiful and capable. Unlike Zhong Kai's ex-girlfriend who was a money loser, she promised that after selling this house, she would buy them a new one, registered under the female streamer's name as a betrothal gift. Zhong Kai held the female streamer by her slender waist and sweetly called her, "Baby, our online store is finally on track, all thanks to that fool. We didn't spend a single penny up front." The female streamer pouted coquettishly. "Ugh, don't bring up your ex-girlfriend again. You're so ugly, yet you always complain about my high salary, saying I have no education and just rely on my looks to get by. Huh, what right does she have to criticize me? She didn't even manage to get her diploma herself." Did she? Yes, yes, how could she compare to my darling? I must have been blind before, how could I have fallen for that plain-looking woman? Luckily, I met my darling later. He, darling, I'll give you the house, and I'll give you my shop too, so you can be the real boss lady. Okay, perhaps they were too pleased with themselves, for none of them noticed Li Chinchua following behind, her eyes burning with hatred. Li Chinchua picked up a beer bottle, smashed it, and cornered the entire family. In the hallway, in the scuffle, Li Chinchua plunged the broken bottle into Zhong Kai's neck, and he died on the spot. Zhong Kai's mother and the female streamer tried to flee, but Li Chinchua kicked them down the stairs, leaving them severely injured. After doing all this, she wanted to use her mental illness as a reason to escape punishment. The last time she asked Teacher Gong to bail her out at the police station was to lay the groundwork for her revenge plan. However, how could the police be so easily fooled? Off to the mental health assessment center. The bad news is that she does indeed suffer from intermittent schizophrenia. The good news is that at the time of the incident, she was not experiencing an episode and will still be held criminally responsible. No matter how cunning she is, she cannot deceive professional equipment and evaluators. Li Chinchua is suspected of intentional homicide and has been prosecuted according to the law. She ultimately did not escape the sanctions of the law. When everything was settled, several of us teachers and students who had a good relationship gathered together again. Although I only got second place in the written exam, I performed excellently in the interview, successfully turned the tables, and secured the top spot with the highest overall score. Thanks to our popular major, with Teacher Gong's encouragement and planning, Yang successfully received the coveted offer from a top-tier company, and the other classmates also found satisfactory jobs. Teacher Gong was awarded the Outstanding Counselor Award for her hard work and good reputation among the students. We raised our glasses in celebration, toasting to a bright future and to our hardworking selves. Teacher Gong had a bit too much to drink. She hugged me, laughing and crying at the same time. The rest of us watched her, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Yang asked curiously, I always feel that Teacher Gong has been getting quite close to you lately. Do you two have some secret? I smiled and blinked. A secret is a secret. Of course I can't say. I would never tell them that we are companions who have been reborn together. After hearing the second story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My sister-in-law firmly believes that air conditioning is the root of all evil, the culprit that destroys people's health. So even in 40-degree heat, she never turns on the air conditioning, and she doesn't allow us to use it either. I couldn't stand the sweltering heat at home and forcibly turned on the air conditioning, but my nephew ended up in the hospital with heatstroke from being in the high temperatures for too long. My sister-in-law said it was because I let my nephew use the air conditioner that he got sick and ended up in the hospital. She locked me in the room, forbidding me from going out or feeling the cool breeze. I was left to die from the heat at home, and it wasn't until my body began to emit a foul odor in the high temperatures that they finally discovered me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my nephew suffered from heatstroke. Mom, I'm so hot, can you turn on the air conditioner for me? My nephew said weakly to his mother, his cheeks already flushed with an unnatural redness from the heat, his clothes soaked with sweat and clinging to his body. No, you young people ruin your health with all this air conditioning and fans. Look at your aunt, she's full of problems, all from using the air conditioner. If you're sweating, it means your body is detoxifying, and detoxifying is a good thing. Come on, sweetie, drink this cup of hot water to rehydrate, sweat a little more and you'll feel better, get all those toxins out of your body, and you'll cool down. Listen to your mom. My sister-in-law even rolled her eyes at me as she spoke, then shoved a cup of hot water into my nephew's arms. I watched my nephew's pained, resistant expression with a blank face as my sister-in-law forced him to drink that cup of hot water. In my previous life, seeing such a young child suffer like this truly broke my heart. I had a huge argument with my sister-in-law, snatched the air conditioner remote from her hands, and turned on the AC, but because my nephew had already been overheated for too long, he didn't last long after the AC was turned on and ended up suffering from heatstroke due to prolonged exposure to high temperatures. I anxiously called an ambulance to take my nephew to the hospital, then rushed around to pay his medical bills and made sure he took his medicine properly. The doctor said it was fortunate that I had brought my nephew to the hospital in time, as a child so young suffering from heatstroke could have been life-threatening if delayed any longer. I thought my brother and sister-in-law would be grateful for my concern for their son, but to my surprise, they scolded me as soon as they saw me. See, I told you that all of you people ruin your health by Using air conditioning. Now look, not only have you harmed your own body, but you're also harming my son. What a sin. How could my son have such a vicious aunt like you? How can you be so damnable? You owe my precious son his good health. Besides, you're not married, and you don't want children. The money you're spending now will all be left to my son in the future. How can you waste money like this? Clearly, just giving Xiaobao some hot water would have made him better, but you had to bring him to the hospital. You fool, hospitals are just trying to scam you out of money. How much money was spent on this hospital visit? You'll have to pay us back double in the future. Do you hear me? I was left stunned by her scolding, instinctively looking to my brother beside my sister-in-law for help. My brother, however, just stood silently by my sister-in-law's side, even looking at me with a reproachful gaze, and after my nephew was treated, he also believed my sister-in-law's words, blaming all the mistakes on me, calling me a money waster, a nasty woman, saying he didn't need the air conditioning, and cursing me for spending his money. In this life, I will no longer interfere in their affairs. After my nephew was forced by his sister-in-law to drink that cup of hot water, his steps clearly became unsteady, and he could no longer speak clearly, only mumbling indistinctly, "I'm hot, Mom. My head is so dizzy." Sister-in-law just went to boil another pot of water, then sat on the sofa, turned on the fan, and enjoyed the breeze herself, ordering me, "Hey, you there, go out and buy groceries. I want to eat braised pork tonight, and bring me a bowl of shaved ice when you come in. Buy some cucumbers or something to make a cold cucumber salad. I'm going out for a bit. When you get back, cook the dishes and message me, then take a portion of the food to your brother's company for him. Only buy shaved ice for me. I'm in good health and not afraid of catching a chill. You delicate young people are different. If you eat something cold, you'll get stomachaches and bellyaches." I agreed hastily and walked out the door. Of course, it's not for going out to buy groceries. I'm not the family's nanny, so there's no need for me to manage their daily lives. In my previous life, I lived at home and, for the sake of family harmony, endured everything silently, cooking for them and cleaning the house. I even took on the task of picking up and dropping off my nephew at kindergarten. They would say that a married daughter is like water poured out. Daughters are born to marry into other families and are outsiders. If outsiders want to live in the house, they must do things for the family. In my previous life, I was foolish too, actually obeying their words and doing these thankless tasks because I was craving some kind of familial affection. After dying once, I no longer think about wanting any elusive familial affection. Their so-called affection, I disdain even more. After leaving home, I went straight to the rental apartment I had rented. This apartment was rented for the convenience of commuting to work, as the company is located near this residential area, and the route to the office conveniently passes by my nephew's kindergarten. I always prepare meals in the rental apartment, feed my little nephew, then pack the portions for my brother, sister-in-law, and mother to deliver to their home. Finally back in this little nest that belongs only to me, I feel at ease. I turn on the air conditioner, find a good variety show to watch, and take out a box of ice cream to enjoy freely. I didn't get to enjoy this leisurely time for long before the phone suddenly rang. Annoyed, I picked up the phone and saw that the caller was my mother. My mom actually can't stand the heat at home either, since we don't turn on the air conditioning, making it even hotter inside than outside, so she spends every day playing mahjong with the elderly folks at the mahjong parlor. To be honest, she doesn't really have that much of a desire to play mahjong, but she can't resist the fact that the mahjong parlor keeps the air conditioning on all day. It's incredibly cool in there. Normally at this time, she'd still be hanging out at the mahjong parlor and wouldn't even think about anything related to me, her daughter. Seeing her call at this moment, I had a faint suspicion in my heart. My nephew must have gotten into some trouble. The phone rang for quite a while before I finally answered, doing my best to fake an extremely weak tone. "What's wrong, Mom? I accidentally got heatstroke and fainted on my way to buy groceries, and now I'm in the hospital." My mom on the other end of the line was stunned for a moment. Just when I thought she was about to show concern, a barrage of accusations came through. "Your brother, your sister-in-law, and I have been trying to save money for the family and haven't even dared to turn on the air conditioner, and here you are, going to the hospital for such a minor issue. Oh, why can't you be more considerate of your mom?" I listened to her words expressionlessly. I really shouldn't have had any warm expectations for a family like this. "Mom, what did you want to talk to me about?" Only then did Mom remember that she had called me for another reason. "Oh, it's all your fault for interrupting. You made me forget I had something to ask you. Your little nephew fainted at home, so hurry up and drive him to the hospital. He's still young, his body isn't as strong as yours, and your sister In-law absolutely refuses to take your nephew to the hospital. You haven't seen your nephew's condition. His whole body is red and burning abnormally. You need to come quickly and take him to the hospital. If anything happens to my little treasure, I'll make sure you pay for it. You wretched girl, did you hear me? I could even picture my mother on the other end of the phone, spitting with fury. In my previous life, it was always like this. Whenever my mother and my sister-in-law had a disagreement, she would use me as a pawn to confront my sister-in-law, causing my sister-in-law's resentment toward me to grow deeper and deeper. In the end, when my sister-in-law saw that I had died, she even laughed heartily. She didn't even care that in my explanation, I had also been hospitalized due to illness. In her heart, only my brother, my sister-in-law, and my little nephew were her family. I pretended to be unconscious, making no sound at all, and put on my headphones connected to the tablet to continue watching my variety show, with a cool ice cream tub in my arms and the room's air conditioner set at 26 degrees. Only a fool would drive out in 40-degree heat to work like a slave for someone else. No matter how frantically my mother jumped around and cursed on the other end of the line, I didn't respond at all. She eventually hung up in frustration. My little nephew lay unconscious on the sofa, and my sister-in-law covered him with a thick quilt, saying disdainfully to my mother, "Only an ignorant old woman like you would worry over nothing. My son has sweated so much that he's already expelled the virus through his pores. Do you even understand? The virus flows out with the sweat through the pores. He's as healthy as can be now. You're just making a fuss over nothing. Uneducated." He called me and made me rush home. "Do you know you disturbed me? The time for mooching off the air conditioning." My sister-in-law swallowed the rest of her words and glanced at my mother with a slightly guilty look. She actually felt it was too hot too, but couldn't bear to turn on the air conditioning at home, so she went to the neighbor's house to chat and enjoy their air conditioning. Anyway, they're open from morning till night, so having one more person there doesn't cost them anything. But my mom clearly didn't notice anything unusual. In the end, she argued with my sister-in-law and took my nephew to the hospital. How did I find out about all this? It's because I received another phone call from their family. This time, it was my brother who called. As soon as the call connected, he confidently informed me to transfer him 30,000 yuan, as he needed to pay for his nephew's medical and rescue expenses. I almost laughed in anger. No, in my previous life, when I took my nephew to the hospital, they thought I was wasting their family's money. In this life, I haven't even gotten involved. Yet they still reached out to ask me for money. Not only did they ask, but they also demanded so much more. Why don't you think it's a waste at this moment? In my previous life, I never realized how shameless they were. On the surface, I sneered coldly, but my voice was weak and feeble, occasionally punctuated by a cough or two. It's not that I don't want to help my nephew, it's just that I don't have any money on me right now. You know, Mom went to my company and made a big scene, saying our company shouldn't make us work until 9 p.m. because it interferes with me picking up my nephew. My boss was so scared that he fired me on the spot that very night. I don't have much savings to begin with, and I hand over my salary to Mom every month. Now my rent for this month is due, and I was wondering, brother, could you lend me 3,000 to help me out? Before I could finish speaking, my brother hung up the phone. Look, they always expect me to make sacrifices for them, whether it's for big or small matters, but when I needed them to do something for me, they abandoned me in an instant over a mere 3,000 yuan. This is the family affection I was willing to risk my life for in my past life. As for claiming to have no money, that was completely fabricated. Although the company terminated my employment, they still paid me a substantial sum according to the contract. Out of sight, out of mind, I simply turned off my phone and happily holed up in my little home. My brother and sister-in-law aren't having it as easy as I am. My brother held the phone with a gloomy expression on his face. That money-losing wretch lost her job and now has the nerve to ask me for a loan. Good thing I hung up quickly. If that wretched girl had managed to swindle me, I'd be in real trouble. My sister-in-law stood nearby, covering her mouth with a smug, delicate laugh. You're so clever, honey. Then she worriedly said, what about the medical expenses for our little treasure? That wretched girl won't give us any money. Let's ask my mom for it. After all, her money will be ours when she passes away, so what's wrong with spending a little on our little treasure now? Besides, wasn't it Mom who insisted on bringing our son to the hospital? Since she came on her own initiative, it's only right that she pays for it. Soon, Mom came out of the ward holding my little nephew, still muttering under her breath, oh dear, hospitals are such money pits. Just one night's stay costs several hundred yuan. I told the doctor we won't be staying in the hospital, we're going home. What about you? Have you all paid the fees? After hearing this, The brother and sister-in-law exchanged a glance, and then the brother stepped forward and said, "Mom, you should pay for this, you know, my salary is all going toward the mortgage, and because of you, my sister lost her job and has no savings at all. She can't even afford the rent. You haven't spent much money over the years, so take out some to pay for Xiaobao's fees." When my mom heard my brother say that, she immediately exploded. "Ungrateful son, that's the money I saved for my own retirement. How dare you even think about your own mother's retirement savings? Are you even human? And if I hadn't brought little Treasure to the hospital in time, he might have died at home. Didn't you hear what the doctor said? If we had brought him any later, he would have had to be sent to the emergency room." Seeing this, my sister-in-law also lost patience and stopped speaking nicely to my mother. Instead, she started spewing venom at her. "How dare you say that? If it weren't for you shamelessly insisting on bringing my son to the hospital, would any of this have happened? You come to the hospital knowing nothing, just to give money to these scammer doctors, and now you want us to pay. Is that even reasonable? Don't I know what's going on with my own son? What right does an ignorant old hag like you have to speak? You're the one who insisted on coming to the hospital and paying, so go ahead and pay. I couldn't care less." My mother was so angry that her face turned red and her neck thickened, but she couldn't utter a single word. In the end, she had no choice but to go to the payment window and hand over the money. Just as she was about to take the prescription slip to pay for the medicine, my sister-in-law snatched it away from her. After glancing at the ingredients listed on the slip, she crumpled it into a ball. "What are you doing? That's the prescription for little Treasure. Are you trying to kill my precious grandson?" My mother immediately screamed at the sight. My sister-in-law, however, waved her hand dismissively. "I just looked at that useless piece of paper, and it's all just medicine to reduce internal heat. We won't waste money on that. We'll just go home and make some cooling, heat-clearing soup for little Treasure to eat, and he'll be fine." These greedy intellectuals, charging hundreds of yuan for such trivial things, they deserve divine punishment. Just thinking about it, every penny spent on that old hag now will have to be paid back later, and my sister-in-law is heartbroken over every single one. What's more, the hospital's air conditioning was blasting, and my sister-in-law was afraid it would make her precious son sick, so she and my brother hurried back to their sweltering home. The three of them were drenched in sweat the moment they stepped out of the hospital. To save money, they had walked home in 40-degree heat, and now they were completely exhausted, collapsing one by one at the door, gasping for breath. Right at that moment, my nephew slowly woke up, crying that he was hungry and wanted to eat. Only then did they remember that I hadn't brought them any food today. No one wants to take an extra step outside in this weather, but ordering takeout feels like a waste of money, and my phone keeps showing as powered off. In the end, my sister-in-law gritted her teeth and went to the supermarket to buy groceries. Little did she know, the trip turned out to be a pleasant surprise. The supermarket's air conditioning was cranked up high, and unlike the noisy, medicine-scented atmosphere of a hospital, it was quiet and refreshing. The cool air made her feel completely at ease. Her skin relaxed, and she felt as light as if she were floating on a cloud. The sweat I had worked up on the way to the supermarket evaporated completely in an instant, leaving no trace of that sticky feeling on my body. From then on, my sister-in-law fell in love with grocery shopping. I had a good sleep in my rented room and didn't get ready to go home until almost noon, planning to bring my own things left at home back to the rented place. More importantly, I needed to transfer my household registration out of that family. Leaving my household registration with them was always a potential risk. As soon as I opened the door, I saw my nephew sitting listlessly on the sofa, holding a cup of green paste that was still bubbling. The room was already unbearably stuffy, and this mysterious substance emitted a foul odor that filled the entire space. I couldn't help but gag and asked him what it was. My nephew glanced at me without saying a word, while my sister-in-law walked out of the kitchen energetically, holding an empty cloth bag, and looked at me with a gaze that seemed to say I was clueless. "This is my specially made fire-reducing drink. You wouldn't understand, would you? It's made from bitter melon and Chinese gold thread. It clears heat and relieves summer heat. Don't even think about drinking it. This is only for my precious son. After drinking it, my baby will grow tall and strong." You didn't come when your nephew was admitted to the hospital yesterday, and now you're back home. Even if you offered me 30 or 40,000 as an apology, I wouldn't forgive you. As my sister-in-law spoke, the greed in her eyes was impossible to hide. Unfortunately, I wasn't actually here to give them money. I immediately put on a pitiful face, crying and sniffling as I turned to my sister-in-law. "Sister-in-law, you and my brother have to save me." Seeing me in this state, my sister-in-law's face instantly darkened. Sensing something was wrong, She tried to break free from me and leave through the door, but I held onto her tightly, trapping her in the doorway. Tears and snot streaming down my face, I poured out the best acting performance of my life in that moment. Sister-in-law, after Mom ruined my job, I had no money. I didn't want to trouble you and my brother, so I took out a loan myself. I thought I'd find a new job quickly and pay off the debt, but no company has been willing to hire me so far, and now the repayment deadline is here. The debt collectors came to my small rented room last night, smashed everything they could, and threatened that if I don't repay the money today, they'll kidnap and sell me. Sister-in-law, please save me. If I can't repay the loan, it won't just affect your and my brother's mortgage, it might even jeopardize my brother's job. If the debt collectors can't get the money from me, they'll definitely come to your house to demand it from you. Just 100,000 yuan will do. Sister-in-law, please lend me 100,000 yuan, you and my brother. Upon hearing this, my sister-in-law's face instantly turned as dark as it could get, especially when she heard I wanted to borrow 100,000 yuan. She immediately lifted her foot and kicked me in the stomach. I immediately dodged to the side, still sobbing and sitting on the ground, wiping away my tears. It was so genuine that I almost believed it myself. Sure enough, my sister-in-law didn't suspect a thing. She cursed and went inside to get the household registration booklet, then grabbed my arm and started dragging me. I pretended to be extremely reluctant, putting up a struggle as we went to transfer my household registration. By the time my mother and brother arrived, I had already obtained my own independent household registration. I tried my best to suppress the corners of my mouth that wanted to curl up, and my tone was filled with disappointment as I spoke to them. I never expected you to be this kind of person. Fine then, I'll take on this 100,000 myself. From now on, I have nothing to do with your family. Both my brother and mother looked at me as if I were something dirty, and neither of them tried to stop me or say a single kind word. Fortunately, I no longer feel hurt by their attitude. As for the things at home, forget it, let them be the last bit of charity I give them. Tonight, I'm going to treat myself well in the air-conditioned room. My sister-in-law, brother, and mother returned home, cursing me for being unfilial and a disgrace to the family. Opening the door, a cold gust of wind hit them in the face. Both were stunned and quickly walked inside, only to find their nephew lying naked on the sofa, happily enjoying the air conditioning. Seeing his sister-in-law and the others return home, he jolted awake and scrambled to turn off the air conditioner, but his sister-in-law was faster. She rushed up to him and slapped him hard across the face. You wretched thing, why didn't you listen properly to your mother? Why did you secretly turn on the air conditioner? You saw it too, didn't you? How pathetic your aunt looked today. Let me tell you, it's all because of the air conditioner. If you don't listen to your mother, your health will suffer. Do you know how many young people in the world have died from air conditioning sickness because they used air conditioners? You're using the air conditioner now, and the toxins and viruses in your body can't be expelled through your pores. They accumulate inside you, making you sick and even dulling your mind. Oh, my ancestors, I really need to bite you a couple of times to vent my anger. The nephew was so frightened that he burst into loud crying. But Mom, I'm so hot, I feel terrible, and my head is spinning. This is what they call air conditioning sickness. This is from you using the air conditioner. Look, you've only been using it for a little while and you're already sick. My sister-in-law exclaimed loudly as she turned off the air conditioner, helped my nephew put on his clothes, and opened the window to let in fresh air. The remaining cool air in the room was instantly swallowed up by the heat wave. Soon, fine beads of sweat began to seep from everyone's skin. My brother said he had work to do at the company and needed to go back to the office, while my mom mentioned that her old friends had invited her to play mahjong. The two of them quickly left the house, eagerly looking forward to cooling off with the air conditioning. My sister-in-law dressed my nephew, and his gaze became dazed again, as if he were dizzy from the fever, his whole body weak and unsteady on his feet. My sister-in-law became even more convinced that it was from the air conditioning. She put my nephew on the bed, covered him with several layers of quilts, forced a cup of bitter melon and coptis paste into his mouth, and then took a bag to the supermarket to enjoy the air conditioning. My nephew was extremely uncomfortable. He crawled out from under the covers and opened the refrigerator. Immediately feeling much better, he found ice cubes in the refrigerator and put one in his mouth, instantly opening the door to a whole new world for my nephew. It's so cool, so comfortable. The nephew felt the nausea and dizziness that had been plaguing him for a long time immediately relieved. The refreshing sensation made him utterly captivated. He almost finished all the ice cubes in one go, then carefully froze new ones. Estimating that his sister-in-law would be home soon, he went back to bed and lay down. When the sister-in-law returned home, she saw that, hey, the nephew's complexion had indeed become much rosier. She actually believed it was her own ideas and the bitter melon and coptis juice that had worked, and she proudly declared at the dinner table, "See, I told you the doctors in the hospital are all full of nonsense, they're just here to scam money, would I ever harm my own son? Look, after drinking the medicine I made myself, he got better right away." Both my brother and mother praised my sister-in-law for being clever and capable, and for managing the household frugally, which made her even prouder. Every day after that, my nephew would sneak to eat ice cubes while his mother and the others were out, crouching in front of the refrigerator to cool off. However, once a child gets a taste of something enjoyable, they don't know how to restrain themselves. Children's digestive systems are naturally delicate. And with him eating large amounts of ice every day and being exposed to the cold air from the refrigerator, my nephew unfortunately developed stomach issues and gastroenteritis, suffering from stomach cramps whenever he ate. The nephew can't eat ice because he gets too hot and uncomfortable, but if he eats ice, he gets a stomachache, putting him in a dilemma. To avoid being discovered by his sister-in-law, he has been enduring it, always finishing the meals she prepares despite the pain before rushing to the bathroom. At first, the sister-in-law suspected there was something wrong with her cooking, but no one else in the family had any issues except her nephew. After thinking it over, she gritted her teeth and took him to the hospital. Before entering the hospital, she even wrapped an extra layer of clothing around her nephew. After examining the patient, the doctor scolded my sister-in-law angrily. "How can you adults be so irresponsible? You know the weather is hot, but you still let the child eat so much cold food." A child this young has a very delicate digestive system. Even a small issue like this could be life-threatening. When you go back, don't indulge him in eating so much cold food anymore. Instead, give him more stomach-nourishing foods. Before the doctor could finish speaking, my sister-in-law stood up excitedly and pointed at the doctor, shouting, "Quack, quack. I shouldn't have brought my son to this so-called hospital of yours in the first place. My son hasn't touched a single cold thing. What kind of illness are you even diagnosing? What a lousy hospital, lying without even batting an eye. This trip was a complete waste of my money. Pa, son, let's go." Without giving the doctor a chance to respond, my sister-in-law took her son and headed straight home, but a nagging suspicion in her mind drove her to open the refrigerator door, where she discovered water that hadn't yet frozen into ice. It was clearly something that had been put in the fridge just this afternoon. My sister-in-law flew into a rage and gave my nephew a good beating. He cried and wailed, swearing he would never dare again, and only then did she relent. After that, my sister-in-law kept an even stricter watch over my nephew. Not only did she hide the fan on top of the wardrobe, but she also took the air conditioner remote with her and even unplugged the refrigerator before leaving the house. To treat my nephew's stomach issues, she made him drink large amounts of boiled water every day, followed by a cup of bitter melon and coptis paste. My sister-in-law no longer allowed him to catch even a slight breeze, forbade him from using a fan to cool off, and even prohibited him from fanning himself with his hand. Within just a few days of living like this, my nephew began to feel dizzy and nauseous again. With no strength left in his body, he was so overheated that his head felt heavy and muddled, and the bitter melon paste was so unpalatable that it made him vomit and have diarrhea. Unwilling to just sit and wait for help, he turned to the outside world for assistance, and the first person he thought of was actually me. When I received the call from my nephew, I was truly shocked. On the other end of the line, he was sobbing, his voice weak and feeble. "Money-losing burden, come pick me up from home to go to kindergarten. I don't want to stay at home anymore. If you don't come get me, I'll tell Grandma to never give you money again." I had felt a flicker of sympathy for the little one, but hearing those words, my expression instantly turned cold. I really shouldn't have held any unreasonable expectations for something raised by that family. I responded coldly, "I'm not your aunt anymore. Your grandma, Dad, and Mom have already kicked me out of the house. It's not like you don't know. I have no obligation to help a stranger." With that, I hung up the call without waiting for my little nephew to say anything else. By then, I had already found a new job, and had no desire to have any further involvement with that awful family. After failing to get help from me, my little nephew turned to his parents and told them he wanted to go back to kindergarten. No one in the family was willing to take him to kindergarten in the first place, and with the weather outside being so hot, naturally, no one was even more inclined to do so. They resorted to coaxing and deceiving him to make him give up the idea of going back to school. Seeing that he couldn't go to kindergarten to catch a cold draft, my nephew wanted to follow his mother out to enjoy the air conditioning. knowing that she went to the supermarket every day to buy groceries. That big supermarket has the air conditioning on every single day, but my sister-in-law is also a shrewd person. Whenever my nephew fusses about going out with her, she takes him to a grocery store farther from home. We can't let the little one catch another draft. Look at that blasted air conditioning, what has it done to my son? The owner of the small vegetable shop was also reluctant to turn on the air conditioning, and the vegetables in the store looked wilted and listless. After a few times, my nephew was no longer willing to go out with my sister-in-law. Finally, on the day my sister-in-law went out, my nephew closed his eyes and lay on the sofa, twitching for a while, and then remained quietly on the sofa, not moving at all until my sister-in-law returned home. When my sister-in-law opened the door and saw her precious son lying obediently on the sofa sleeping, a strong sense of happiness instantly welled up in her heart. She sighed with relief, thinking she had indeed done the right thing. After all this time without being exposed to cold drafts, Little Bao had finally become well-behaved and adorable. It was all because of not using the air conditioner. All the bad influences had been forced out. From now on, her son would be the smartest and healthiest child in the entire school. Sister-in-law happily daydreamed as she entered the kitchen. By the time she finished cooking and came out, her brother and mother had also returned home, both fanning themselves with their hands from the heat. "Sweetie, come and eat." My sister-in-law sat at the dining table, but my nephew didn't come running to eat as usual. "Sweetie." My sister-in-law walked toward the sofa with a puzzled look. My nephew remained in the same position, lying motionless on the couch. Only then did my sister-in-law realize something was terribly wrong. Her face filled with anxiety as she held my nephew and shook him vigorously. Baby boy, what's wrong with you? Don't scare mommy, wake up, sweetheart." The nephew remained motionless, his eyes tightly shut. Hearing the commotion, the two immediately rushed from the dining table to the nephew's side. Mom reached out to touch him and was startled by the intense heat radiating from his body. As if he were about to boil over, she quickly withdrew her hand and cried out in alarm, "Xiao Bao has a fever, take him to the hospital." Take Xiao Bao to the hospital. However, the weather outside was extremely hot, and both the older brother and mother stayed at home, claiming they were too tired from just returning home. Only the sister-in-law took the nephew to the hospital alone. At the hospital, after examining the nephew's condition, the doctor's expression instantly turned serious. Without saying a word to the sister-in-law, he immediately arranged for someone to wheel the nephew to the emergency room, but the sister-in-law clung tightly to her nephew, unwilling to let go. "How come it's you again, this quack? My son just has a high fever, all he needs is an 4 drip. Why are you pushing him into the emergency room, trying to scam our family's money again? Let me tell you, I won't be fooled again. Today, we're only getting an 4 drip, nothing else. Don't even think about swindling another penny out of me." The doctor was so angry that his face turned red and his neck thickened. He reached out to snatch his nephew back, fuming. "Are you the doctor, or am I? Your son doesn't have a cold or a high fever at all. He's suffering from heatstroke. Give me the child quickly. If we don't act in time, he really will die." But my sister-in-law still looked at him warily. "Heatstroke? What is heatstroke?" Heatstroke is a severe form of heat illness that occurs when a child is exposed to high temperatures for an extended period. It's clear you didn't provide any first aid for this child when you arrived. If we don't get him treatment soon, his life could be in danger. The doctor's anxiety was written all over his face, but the sister-in-law flashed a confident smile that seemed to say, "I'm starting to understand everything. Oh, I get it now. This is just another made-up illness you doctors have come up with to squeeze money out of people. Heatstroke. I've lived this long and never even heard of such a ridiculous disease. If there really is such a disease, how come I don't know about it? In our day, we didn't have air conditioning or fans, just waving a fan, and we still managed to live to this old age. I've never heard of anyone dying from this so-called heatstroke. You doctors, I've seen right through you." With that, my sister-in-law picked up my nephew and walked home without looking back, proudly telling them that she had exposed the doctor's money-making scam. "Treating a high fever is something I'm really good at. There's no need to spend money at the hospital for injections or 4 drips." My sister-in-law first covered my nephew tightly with a thick quilt. A high fever requires sweating it out. Once the sweat comes, the fever will go down. Then, she pried open my nephew's mouth and poured in a cup of hot water. "When you're sick, you need to drink plenty of hot water to recover faster." Then, she brought a cup of bitter melon and coptis paste and fed it to her nephew. "This is a magical secret recipe for clearing heat and reducing fire. The fever will go down soon after drinking it." After doing all this, Her sister-in-law was already sweating profusely from exhaustion, but looking at her son's peaceful sleeping face, she felt it was all worth it, and she held her son and fell into a deep sleep. In the middle of the night, the sister-in-law woke up groggily and reached out to touch her nephew's forehead. It was cool to the touch, no longer the frighteningly high temperature it had been during the day. She smiled contentedly, tilted her head, and fell back asleep. When she woke up the next day, the first thing she did was reach for her son's soft little hand, but instead, she felt something hard. Hard? How could her son's little hand be hard? My sister-in-law was immediately jolted awake and hurried to check on her son. My nephew was already pale and stiff, with small patches of lividity beginning to appear on his tiny body due to the high temperature. How could this be? How could this be? My sister-in-law seemed drained of all her strength, sitting dazed on the bed, murmuring to herself, "My baby, my precious son, how could this happen?" Suddenly, she lifted her head, her eyes already filled with hatred. "Yes, it's all his fault, it's all their fault, him and his mother. If they had gone to the hospital with me and heard what the doctor said about heatstroke, I wouldn't have made such a mistake. It's all because they refused to go with me to take little Bao to the hospital. They are the ones who killed my precious son, not me, not me." My sister-in-law muttered to herself, then rushed into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and stabbed my brother and my mother to death. Pitifully, they were still in a deep slumber when they met their tragic end under their sister-in-law's knife, their faces filled with disbelief. Even in death, they couldn't comprehend what they had done to make their loving wife and dutiful daughter-in-law harbor such deep hatred that she would kill them. After completing these actions, the sister-in-law returned to her room, holding her nephew's body. "Good child, Mom has avenged you. My life has long been back on track, with both my personal and professional aspects perfectly aligned. I have no intention of finding a man to marry. I simply want to live the life I desire to the fullest." Hearing about them again was through the local news report. Why did a woman kill her husband and mother-in-law, then live with the 3 corpses for 4 days? After clicking into the news, I learned that after my sister-in-law killed my brother and grandmother, she did not call the police or an ambulance, nor did she take their bodies to be cremated. She left them as they were when they were killed. As for her nephew's body, she slept with it every day, feeding it a bitter melon paste in the morning while muttering prayers for her son to recover quickly. Under the scorching heat, the body quickly decomposed, emitting a foul odor. The neighbors finally realized the unusual nature of the smell and called the police. When the police broke in, this was the scene they encountered. Afterwards, my sister-in-law was diagnosed with mental illness and sent to a psychiatric hospital. I was contacted by the police to sign the cremation form for their remains. Their assets were also rightfully transferred to my name. Unexpectedly, each of them had secretly hidden a substantial amount of private savings, which added up to around 1 million. After handling their funeral arrangements, I immediately took the money and settled in a third-tier coastal city. The affairs of the world are like flowers reflected in a mirror or the moon reflected in water, each with its own predetermined course and trajectory. If one rashly wades into the sea of another's suffering, attempting to use one's own boat to ferry them to the shore, not only will it be difficult to alleviate their distress, but one may also find oneself drawn into a deeper vortex. Suffering is an indispensable thorn on the tree of life, honing each soul in its own unique way. Interfering without permission is like rowing a boat against the current. Not only does it fail to calm the storm, but it also exposes one's own vessel to the wind and rain, allowing suffering to quietly transfer and become a burden too heavy to bear. Thus, the wise understand that compassion and aid must have boundaries. Only by respecting the unique journey of each destiny can one navigate the world without falling into self-inflicted predicaments. It turns out that my own brilliant life had already quietly set sail long ago. After hearing the stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.